Good morning, everybody. It is Keisha. So President Obama is taking credit for the boom of America's economy. So we recently heard Obama tweet that, pretty much his policies. It's his policies that brought America back to, from the brink of a Great Recession, and also that basically he can take credit for the economy today. And what's funny to me is that, so when President Trump does good things, it's because of Obama, and everything bad, it's because of Trump, which is really weird. It's like, okay, can we at least be consistent with the blame? Like, if he's president now, can he at least get credit for what he's doing now? Because when President Obama was doing those things in his presidency, nobody was saying it was because of President Bush. you know, that is so interesting to me. I think we need to give credit where credit is due. President Obama has a fascinating way of of mastering the English language. He says a lot of things, and if you really look into it, he's not really saying much. And he's just a master orator. I mean, he can just inspire you and just like make you feel all good inside, and then like you realize that you were conned. I think that was a good word that President Trump tweeted, con, because jobs, manufacturing jobs, increased by over 300% under President Trump. It's no magic wand, as President Obama said, what is he going to do? Wave a magic wand? No, there's just economic policies that businesses go to. Money is fluid. It goes to where it goes to where it's wanted. So if you put these regulations up that restrain businesses from creating, innovating, being more investment friendly, and not taxing them so freaking high. Under President Obama, we have the highest corporate tax rates in the world. That is not pro job growth. So no, it's not a magic wand. It's just about understanding economics, and what spurs job growth. Just the thought, just the inkling that when not just even the thought, but when President Trump won the election, jobs the market started to people businesses started to bring their money back to America that they had off in these foreign countries because it was being taxed to freaking high heaven. So they started, once he was elected, they already knew the type of policies that he would implement, and they started bringing their money back to America immediately. Now, one sector did grow under President Obama, and that was government jobs, which under President Trump, government jobs have shrank. It has only grown by 0.8%. Under President Obama, that sector grew by over 300%. Now, what the heck does that do? Everybody can't have a government job. Most Americans can't. That is a small portion of concentrated jobs. You can't, and I mean, you can't have that type of um, of job growth concentrated in the government, especially when Americans pay for that for their salaries. I mean, it just that's not going to work. And so we need to give credit where credit is due. Obama needs to stop with the foolishness. And people need to wake up and understand how economics work. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, there are things that just kill jobs. There are policies that just kill jobs. When you heavily regulate a business and they can't, it costs them so much money to innovate. You are restraining them. You have to let them have freedoms in order to function, so they can invest in new machinery, so they can invest in building things and put people to work. Let the innovators and entrepreneurs do what they're good at. That's why America has been so good, because we still function under a capitalist framework. That is what makes America great. That is what makes America exceptional. It is that, that's what separates us from the majority of the world. Capitalism, free markets. Let the entrepreneurs do what they do. Under Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, that mindset that everything needs to be government controlled and government needs to have its hands in everything. No, less government lets people build, it lets people innovate, it lets people thrive, it lets entrepreneurs, even small businesses, when local governments, implement all these regulations where you have to have, all these type of permits and do all these things to build housing, to open food trucks, to, do even just small businesses. When the government strangles you into having all these regulations, all these things that have to be fulfilled before you can even go into business, you limit what people can actually do, because most entrepreneurs don't have a lot of money that they can go and just and fulfill all these permits and regulations and loopholes and hurdles and things like that for you to jump through. So it just blows my mind, like, that, you know people think that Barack Obama's economy was is the reason for where we are today. I mean, his policies were not attracting money to it. The policies who are making money want to run away. It was not attracting money. His policies were not attracting the money. They just weren't. So let's just keep it all the way 100. Let's just, we can give Barack Obama credit for what he did. I personally, I didn't agree with the stimulus package. If that's capitalism. If it fails, it fails. There'll be another one that comes along, and that will, spur its growth. It will recover on its own. We and it's hard to say. People like to say, well, if he didn't wouldn't have done that, then um this would, that we would have been in a crisis. We don't know that. It's easy to take claim over something that never happened. Well, if I wouldn't have done this, and then, I would be a millionaire. You don't know that. You don't know. You don't know. That's not like a positive claim. You can't take credit for something that didn't happen and say that if you didn't do it, then it wouldn't have happened. You don't know because you didn't do it. You don't know that if it you just don't it, and that's the thing. You don't know. So in that case, shut up. Like, be quiet, because you Barack Obama has never owned a business, not one day of his life. Never. Not one day has he ever owned a business. But he has all these, assumptions on how businesses work. It just doesn't function the way he pictures it in his mind. It just doesn't function that way. So anyway, I just wanted to come in and talk about, you can't just attribute these things that didn't happen and say if you wouldn't have done what you did, that they wouldn't have happened. We don't know that. It's an unknown. So you can't say that. That's number one. Number two, money flows to where it's attracted to, basically. If you have policies that attract money, the economy is going to grow. If you don't have policies that attract money, it's not going to grow. Period. I mean, investors aren't stupid. They're not stupid. They've been doing these things for years. They under most of them, many of them. You don't get to that level of success by not understanding money, by not understanding growth, by not understanding economics. You don't get to those levels by not understanding people. You don't. It is something that you really have to understand. You can't just make up these hypotheticals in your mind, and it comes from the failure. It comes from actually failing, not saying, oh, if I would have did this, then this would have happened. No, it comes from trying something, failing, learning from that, and then going back and doing it again. That's how businesses grow. So they have invested time, money, resources into figuring out, how this is going to work, figuring out what people want, figuring out how can I make their people's lives better. That's how businesses grow. They have to provide something that people actually want in order to grow. So you can't just say, oh, well, if I wouldn't have did this, then this would not. You don't know that. And so, it's really arrogant of President Obama to take credit for things that he really did not do. His whole philosophy doesn't even line up with how economics and money works. That's why just when they knew President Trump had not even implemented not one policy, but they knew just him being elected was going to open up markets because of the things that he had talked about, because of who he was as a businessman. People can say whatever they want to say, but they respect him. Other investors and entrepreneurs respect him as a businessman. They could anticipate what he was going to do. And that's why money just started coming back to America before he even implemented foreign policy. We had heard all of Barack Obama's policies. We heard and saw what he was doing. They were happy for him to get up out of there because they could actually help grow. They could get back to helping the country grow. And yes, no, capitalism is not perfect. Free markets are not perfect. There are ebbs and flows. It goes up and it goes down. Yes, but it recovers. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that Barack Obama is responsible for the economy in 2020? Or do you think President Trump is responsible for the economy in 2020? I personally think President Trump is responsible for the economy. Before he even got, like I said a million times, before he even put his policies into place, you could see things start to turn around because investors and entrepreneurs, they were eager to get their money back into the economy, into the American economy. Anyway, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Have a blessed day.